meta payment. Though meta's already covered, so you can just say X marks the spot to put the money.
Okay, there's
It's a
going to be
payment in a payment, and we're live.
Well, I was gonna just say here quickly that there's gonna be a CEO listening, and they're gonna be like, "That's it. That's the next way we make money."
Yeah. We're just gonna make
Hello
people pay.
there.
Hi.
Welcome to Roll for Beer, Season 2, Episode 3.
Three-ish, something like that.
Three-ish.
Yeah.
We have one in the pipeline, and then we
It's
have
coming.
one that has been in editing hell, and
welcome
Hi.
everybody.
Wait, does that make this like a pie episode? You know, like a 314, so it's like pie, and but we forgot. How do we know?
We certainly have enough
pie.
fruity beverages for pies.
It's very true.
Apple-based.
And
Yes.
apple-based. And surprisingly, grape-based. Grape
Yes.
pie is one of my favorite kinds of pie.
You know what? Have we tried it before?
Grape pie? Yes,
Yeah. Have you actually?
I have.
Oh.
Hello everybody. Welcome to Roll for Beer. Tonight you'll notice a shiny, happy new face with us. We have Otter. Are you an otter? You're an otter. Yeah.
Yes, I have the seal of approval for that.
Scrap everything. We're restarting. Scrap it all. Let's start again.
We're doing it live. We have fantasy
Very much
author
so.
Adam Dreece joining us tonight. Fresh off the release of Wondrous and Perilous Treasures, Volume 1 for 5e Fantasy, as well as for old school games into e-fantasy.
Yes.
How's it going, Adam?
It's going well. Just for your other folks, I happen to have just written a couple of other books, whether it's steampunk meets fairy tale, you know, quite a few of those. Yellow Hood series, and then a spin-off series, and then 3 post-apocalyptic dark fantasy, plus the Wizard Killer, and then a science fiction novel and another novel. But that all aside, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I was excited. So I've the things that I've gone through are some of the Wizard Killer because I'm restricted on my reading time in 2023 because babies, all that jazz.
Yeah.
And so are you familiar with Benedict Giacca?
No.
So he writes a series called Alex Verus, and it's about wizards in real life. And he's a precog that runs a magic shop. And he's like, my only magic is being able to see like 5 seconds into the future. So I always have a knife and a flashlight and a flashbang on me because it helps. And I got a very similar sort of vibe, like Dresden's one thing, but the Wizard Killer really reminded me a lot of like the same sorts of vibes for it. But Alex Verus is very much a young adult centered series, like the writing style and all the rest of it. But I realize I'm suggesting other authors to the author.
Oh, hey, you know what?
It's a thing.
Hey, I'm a strong believer in give people comparatives, and just promoting reading is awesome. For myself, I'd first written my 4 novels of my Steampunk Meets Fairy Tale series. That's the Yellow Hoods one, so the one with the multicolored covers. And then I really got to a point where the advice I was getting from some other authors I knew who were way more established than me were all around the idea of just keep doing the same thing. This you're on the rails. Just keep writing more of that. And the way I look at the world was like, well, you know what? There's these other things I'd like to do. And wouldn't it be a shame that this would be the universe of all the multiverse out there where I didn't take the chance to become that other author? I didn't try to jump out of the lane and go do something different. And so when I wrote the Wizard Killer, there was a couple of things. One, I'd been doing a lot of touring throughout Canada and a little bit into the US, doing a lot of conventions. And I noticed there was a lot of young men in particular who either were about 17 to 24 and folks who were like above 50 who, quote, didn't read. And so I started asking them about their favorite TV shows and whatnot. And then I came to realize, actually, I'm a dyslexic and I have ADHD, that they were really looking for something that would have like a higher return on that emotional investment, that connection. So I wrote The Wizard Killer, and I call them seasons, and I call, instead of a chapter, it's an episode, on the whole idea of, can I take a John Wick style ridiculous amount of action and boil that down with flavored, Die Hard in there with elements of post-apocalyptic dark world, and then just adrenaline junkie shoot it into the reader instead of having those moments that normally would just let you breathe in a book, just vacuum pull those right out.
Yeah.
And then that's what it became. And then I started having people. There's these two guys in Edmonton. They're both, I think, in their 60s. They don't know each other. But when I would go to a convention up there, I could hear them coming from the equivalent of like 3 blocks away. We're like, oh, Yig, there better be another one. Yig is one of the swears in my book, right? It's like they would be coming. They would, like, their wife would have, like, or their partner, or whomever they're with, it would have like a ton of books, but they would get theirs. And it didn't matter, it's a thin novel. It's like 35,000 words, right? It's like 140 pages and whatnot. But they had something for them, and so it was a real cool thing for me. So sort of kind of hijack what you're talking about there, and absolutely bring up other authors. I don't mind. But as one of the things that it's an exciting element for me. It's one of the backstory things. Some people can just kind of get the story, and others like, oh my God, you brought your kind of software tech side, and you designed, and you analyzed the people, you broke them down, and then you really got into their heads, and you're like, if I just kind of hit the dopamine here and I hit this part there, then this is just going to be absolutely fantastic. So, there you go.
First of all, loved like just the energy and the explanation, and definitely the feeling at cons when you see somebody that you're like, you better have something new because I will buy it. And if you don't, I'm still going to buy something, but I'm a little bit disappointed and sad.
Oh yeah. But there's nothing like the disappointment of the table look. There's the is there anything new here? And I mean, I had a dry spell for 5 years. So I got some of the glare, but and that there's a whole story about dealing with depression, anxiety, and all that stuff. And if we get to that, fantastic. But yeah.
Before we continue any further, we do have our show called Roll for Beer, and right now it's called Roll for Cider. And I think we need to roll ourselves a drink here before we get too much further.
I am very thirsty.
Yes.
Indeed.
So, because I am working in batches of 3, I will be rolling a 12-sided die tonight.
I've got a 6-sided die for me.
The D12 needs some.
I'm going to start with a D6.
All right.
I've got 3.
3, 2, 1. 1. Now, Adam, as the guest, am I counting up or down? Am I pulling left to right or right to left?
You know what? By default, I don't know why. I went from right to left.
Okay.
I may have just pulled a DM shenanigans, but I mean,
it's behind the screen.
It's behind the screen.
Roll.
Maintain your integrity.
Oh, look! It's a 6.
Sure.
Tonight I have Rekorderlig premium Swedish Passionfruit cider. It's a 4.5% pear cider blended with passion fruit, made from pure Swedish spring water, and it looks delicious and is an excellent violet can.
Very, very sweet.
Good.
Be prepared.
I like it sweet.
I have a new cidery that I did not even know existed in Alberta till recently, called Journey North Cidery Co. I have 4 of their ciders here tonight because their rep was very nice and dropped them off to me, because I do work in the industry, like I said. And so far, they've already got my expectations here with this. It's called Mythic Cider. It's got a wonderful dragon on there, but it also has over here. What's this?
It looks like a D20.
Is that a D20? It is. Your saving throw. Your saving throw. Roll a 1. The 25th wipe on that raid boss this week. An unlucky card draw for the 5th time. Out of mana again. This cider is for you.
Aww.
The potion to your low health. The elixir to your battle stats. A homage to game with friends and making memories, whether that be around a table or online cheers. To good times, great fun, and new adventures.
Beautiful. Adam?
Very cool. Well, I rolled the peach cider of No Boats on Sunday.
Yep.
So this is a 5% flavored cider. Enjoy this crisp, refreshing peach-flavored cider crafted with 100% local apples, no boats included. I threw in the last.
Yeah.
No
All
Boats
right,
on
and-
Sunday is a fan favorite.
And we
because
always do
it's
the
delicious.
crack in the can into the mic as close
Indeed.
as we can to it.
3, 2, 1.
One.
Oh, such a nice noise.
I heard the echo through into the meat space right back here. That's great.
Oh, this is gonna be a fun pour. You ready for this? You ready
Yeah.
for this? Okay. Describe this to the viewers at home, if you will, James, as you see this.
Well, it's clear.
Ooh.
Oh. It looks like purple Sprite. Why are you drinking grape soda? It's grape soda, Riley.
Look at that color. This is cider butterfly pea flowers.
It is
Cherry
black magic
juice.
is what it is.
So, pea flowers, or butterfly pea flowers, are used in beers, in all sorts of drinks, and it gives this beautiful purplish hue to drinks. It adds no flavor or just a slight bit of flavor, and you get beautiful color on that.
I'm drinking from the Dragonstein tonight, so you will not see my drink. But I can assure you it is clear, as many ciders are wont to.
Green screen! I claim green screen!
Indeed. There's only so much green screen that I can get with the ginger.
Oh,
That's true.
Also, I forgot to do something.
Riley, for the longest time, Riley would roll in his glass and forget his die. And now, just to spite me, he rolls the die elsewhere and puts it in the glass. One of these days, I'm not going to get to him in time for the Heimlich. And on stream, I'm going to need a new co-host.
Mm-hmm.
So, cider. I'm going to touch on one thing before Riley tells us all about the interesting world of cider. And then I'm going to beeline and take that cider conversation and tell you about the cider that I use in world building. So, Adam, you'd mentioned the whole pick a lane and stay in it, get on the rails and go.
Mm-hmm.
And my first foray into fantasy began when I was about 5 or 6 years old, when I started reading The Belgariad by David Eddings. And David Eddings, say what you will about the man, but he wrote one story and he kept writing that one story a bunch of times and kept just writing that one story for his whole career, right? Over several different series. And then other authors were like, oh, that's really good. We should also write that one series and that one story. But for a little kid getting into a fantasy series where you're seeing the hero's journey come to fruition in the most on the nose way, it was perfect. It hit all of those dopamine centers exactly where I needed them to, because it's like, is the thing I think is about to happen going to happen? It did happen the way I was thinking it was going to. Oh, this feels good. I want to read more books. And if it wasn't for the author staying on his rails, I never would have broken out and forayed into all manner of, everything for the last 30 plus years. So you still could have done a lot of good if you stayed on rails.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you didn't, but still.
I think of it as having a lot of voices in my head, and I have to give them each a turn on a book series. So
yeah, that's entirely fair.
Riley.
So
Riley.
So I'm just going to quickly give a quick review on this one, because this is, I'm giving it my, trying to think, professional review to it, as well as, just a fan of crafty kind of drinks and stuff like that. Very sweet, isn't it, James?
That is really good.
It is juice. That is juice. We were talking a little bit before the stream, where Okanagan ciders, that brand is a very sweet, very artificially kind of a sweet cider.
Yeah,
that is like you are eating a fresh passion fruit kind of sweet.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
It is sticky. It is good. It does not taste like I don't get artificial sweetener out of it.
No.
It tastes like there's fruit on my teeth right now.
Yeah, and well, that's what the nice
Wow.
thing about that cider is.
That is really good.
It's very sweet. But I was gonna say this guy is a little bit not dry, but not sweet. This is a nice kind of a mixture, and it comes through. This is what potion tastes like. Like it is so good. It's got a bit of sweetness, a little bit of that dryness that I love in ciders. But let's talk about how ciders are made. Do either of you have any kind of idea on how that's kind of happens?
A little bit here and there because growing up in BC and spending a whole lot of time around the Okanagan and
Yep.
hitting up cideries and wineries and everything else. And my grandparents, I spent all my summers in Creston, BC, where most of this fruit starts from. But
Fair enough.
Riley, I cede the floor to you.
All right. Well, then
Go
fair
for it,
enough.
sir.
So ciders and this kind of alcoholic beverage, very similar to grapes, are a harvested material, obviously. Or a harvested fruit. And they have to go through a crushing process and all that. But they don't take a huge amount of time to process. So basically it goes harvest day. We harvest all the apples, we sort them. Because if there's anything that's rotted or destroyed or anything like that, anything that has a chance of getting extra bacteria or yeasts in, they have to be disposed. Because if unwanted bacterium get in, you're going to get off flavors. I've talked many times on the podcast about lactobacillus or Brettanomyces or things like that. Those are wild yeast strains that can just show up on the skin of fruit. So we pick all the apples, we sort them, we get rid of all the rotten, bad, all that kind of stuff. And then it goes into basically a press, which I think they're kind of similar still. They could have automatic kind of ones, like metal ones that like squeeze and push all the juices out as much as you can. And then you have the liquid, which then it goes into stainless steel drums, pitches the yeast in, ferments. Then if you wanted to add any extra additives, so for example, people add ginger a lot to apple and stuff like that. Normally a beautiful pairing. From that, it goes straight into bottling. It's a very quick process. It's about a 5-week turnaround once you have the apples, or even 4-week turnaround even, depending on the yeast strain you use. But most of the time, the yeast strains that are used are champagne yeasts, because they're, again, apples and grapes treated very similarly. So to get that extra little bit of pop that you get from cider, using a champagne yeast makes sense.
Is that why you get sometimes ciders that are really dry? It reminds you of that dry white wine.
Yeah, and
Makes sense.
that's because there's with ciders, they're more similar to wine than to beer.
Yeah,
in the sense because it's apples, it's a fruit. You are literally getting a fruit juice, just like you are with grapes, and you are squeezing it till it's just the liquid, and you're fermenting the liquid.
Yeah.
So it justifies the idea that sometimes certain ones that are excessively sweet might feel like an adult juice box.
Yes. And and it's depending on the styles of yeast they're using, because yeasts have different levels of hunger, if you will. Certain yeasts will eat up a lot more sugars than others. The more sugars that they eat, the more dry the cider is. The less sugars that they eat, the more sweet it is. Or they cut it off at a certain point, or they add juice afterwards. All these different kind of things to blend the cider to get the final result that they're desiring. And it's an interesting process. And I have been when I was working for Vessel, I have canned ciders before. And ciders are normally a lot more pleasant to can than sometimes beer. because they tend to foam less and stuff like that. But anyway, that's the basic crash course on ciders. The only thing is, it takes a lot. About 1 ton of apples makes about 500 to 700 liters of cider, which is kind of an interesting thing. And I don't know how much you get from like a field of apples. I was trying to find that information and I really couldn't find like how many apples does it take.
Well, and it depends. It depends too on the kind of apples.
Very true as well.
So like, so if you look at like apple nutrition, if you're looking at your standard, I don't know, Granny Smith, your standard Granny Smith apple, like a large size apple, is about 200 grams, give or take.
Yep.
Right, and depending on what you're looking at for tons, it doesn't take a whole lot to get a ton of fruit.
No.
Yeah. The interesting thing, and this is part of that segue that I was talking about, is when it comes to world building, apples always have a place in my world. Or, I usually go with apples for a couple of reasons. So, and I touched on this a little bit earlier today talking with Adam, but apples don't just give you food that's easily stored throughout a winter that a settlement would require, depending on any kind of a world that you're building. Gives you medicine. Apple leaves are used for treating all sorts of things: acid reflux, diarrhea, heartburn, whole different number of things.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Apple leaves are the nature's Pepto-Bismol?
Yeah, it's a thing. You make a little apple leaf tea, and then made of old and young apple leaves. It's one of those, like, Adam, you may not know this. I happen to play at being a ranger in real life. So picking mushrooms and wild edibles and stuff like that is kind of a thing for me. It's a thing I like to do. But apples, you don't waste anything that you're taking the time and effort to grow. So you make sure that the things that you're growing matter. You make sure that you grow willow trees, so you have salicylic acid, so you can make things like aspirin, things like that. Leaves of apples are used to treat back pain, migraines. In Thailand, they use the roots from apple trees to treat like diarrhea and like urinary tract infections and stuff. It contains the base medicinal components that we use for actual medicines, but just in a much more minute form. So when a settlement is looking at
things I thought I was going to learn today.
So when you take your ton of apples,
yes,
and you stomp and smash and squeeze them out and all of that jazz, and you take as much of it as you possibly can to make your ciders and you bottle it up.
Yeah.
What do you do with the rest of it?
See, now that's what I was trying to find information on. Normally, I would go. I was going to feed for pigs and stuff like that, but okay, yeah.
That's also the case, depending. But the thing is you have a crop that is so versatile in what you're doing, and it's not just apples, but apples are an excellent example of this.
Well, yeah, I was about to say this is technically a cherry cider, so
yeah. A lot of stone fruits, as long as the acidity level is low enough, can be pulped up and mixed with sawdust and used to make paper. It also gives you the ability to, in the cidering process, what happens when you let it go too far? Get vinegar.
Yep.
Vinegar is a reagent for all sorts of both medicinal as well as vinegar is used in blacksmithing as well, depending on what you're doing, because you need to be able to acid etch certain things. All of a sudden, from one crop that if you're going to take the time to put stuff into, apples, man, there's a reason that they're prevalent all throughout human history.
That and bread.
Right?
That and bread.
Technically, just reacting to chat here quick. Our good friend Bill from the Whiskey Dictionary and Dungeons and Drams has suggested that apple seeds can be used to make cyanide, and technically, yes, technically that is a thing that you could get from the seeds, but there's better fruits for that. Most stone fruits are better for it, but
And also, apple cider, yes, technically could be good for us.
yes, I mean, calorically, it's great, right?
Yeah.
But even the fermentation process, the alcohols that it produces was good medicinally, right? And if it's the only kind of alcohol that you have, and you distill it more and more and more until it's a high proof, I mean, alcohol has any number of uses aside from poisoning our livers throughout. So if you look at our homebrew world of Naylor, and you have all of those forests kicking around and orchards all around the base town that we all made. Apple trees, man. It's a thing. And
Interesting.
in a magical world like Dungeons and Dragons, when you can animate a tree to fight for you, I like the idea of an old apple tree kicking some ass. That's a good idea.
It would
right?
be a very grumpy tree, too, especially if it's crab apples.
Right? Oh, I see how it is.
Yeah, the joke soured right there.
Yes, it did. Oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Pulp it and move on. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I'll throw it to the bushels.
That
took a second. Yes.
Another thing that comes up is so Riley, I used to have those apple trees in my backyard. Apple, I would get inundated with pink and white blossoms constantly.
Yeah.
And the blossoms are edible as well. You can use them to make dye. You can use them for all sorts of potpourris and perfumes and things like that. So
these all make sense.
Recycling.
Repurposing.
Repurposing with the intention of getting liquored.
So, but yeah, and there's also some really cool tools that are needed for cidery making and stuff like that. If we're still kind of like on that,
absolutely.
Like the press that was originally designed was basically a small disc that would be over top of a barrel, and you would fill that barrel up with apples, and there would be a spigot or a spout where the liquid would come out at the bottom, and basically you would start turning this apparatus and it would lower the plate down lower and lower and lower and lower, and as you got crushing the apples, the liquid and stuff would be coming out.
I still have one of those.
That's really cool, actually. Have you actually made cider before?
No.
Well, then we're gonna have to do that at some point.
We'll make some garbage can hooch. It'll be a good time.
Let's go. But Adam, speaking about apples and storytelling and world building, you have a lot of worlds. Like a lot of worlds. How many worlds do you have?
So in terms of stories that I put out there, so I've got let's see, in terms of my novels, so my Yellow Hood series, that's the steampunk meets fairy tale, that's in one world. Wizard Killer's in a completely different world. Mana Cloud 9, which is a sci-fi, that's a completely different world. In my Wondrous and Perilous Treasures, so my book of magical items, I actually give preview of two worlds that I'm working on. One actually is I'm building as a world book at the moment, and we've just started play testing. So I'm hoping to get that out. Yeah, so, and that one's called Satori. So now I wrote all my existing books, except for the Wondrous and Perilous Treasures, in about 3.5 years. I'm very manic. And then I wasn't able to finish anything for 5 years, which I actually have about 17, 18 novels that are somewhere between 70 and 80% done, and they just kind of turned to sand. And that's dealing with depression and anxiety, and when you learn that your coping mechanisms for things like ADHD just fail. So there are a whole bunch of other that I've created, easily 6 others, where they have full-on systems, ethos, etc. Those, maybe one day they get repurposed. recycled or released, all which wonderfully start with R. But yeah, I've got my 3 principles from my novels and the one that I'm doing the world book. And the intent with the world book is also then to release some novels in that, so people get to both play in the world as well as be able to consume it. And those are 2 audiences. They do somewhat overlap, and we were talking a little bit earlier before the show, James, about how those are really kind of different. They do have some similarities, but you're kind of taking a really different approach.
Yeah, because one of the cardinal sins, we'll call it, of being a GM or a DM or, uh, is essentially just passing yourself as the author and the players as your audience.
Mhm.
This is my world that I've painstakingly crafted, and you're not allowed to mess it up. This is what we're doing. This is how we're getting there. And that's, it's the difference, I think, between leading and preaching.
Mm.
Because when you're a game master, you're doing collaborative storytelling, right? And as a general rule of thumb, and so I've been a dungeon master for about 25 years, give or take. Like I've been at this a while, and I haven't stopped all the way through. Like there was no dry period for me of, well, I let it go through college. No. Tuesday in college was go to Little Caesars and buy entirely too many pizzas and play more D&D. Like the thing.
Nice.
It's kind of like when my first time playing was in high school, and then I didn't play till I was midway through college or whatever, that kind of time period. But it was, I mean, I still have my memories from my first games, but it's funny.
I never had anything better to do than to sit down and write, and just like I got forever DM'd for the most part. But early on, it's really hard to not gush onto the page and be like, I've thought of everything, and that's not what happened. No, that's not where this is. That's not you. What are you doing? And now, and
no, you can't kidnap the princess.
I'm gonna show you how the sausage is made. Internet. What you do is you take one of these post-it notes right here, or the little cue card, and this is your campaign prep for just a little bit.
Oh no, we've told the truth. Oh, no. Hide.
So the intention is your overarching story, the names of the few people that you want to exist ahead of time, and then from here you build out one more cue card per session that you plan to play.
Yeah.
This is not including things like, well, I'm creating a combat encounter and I need to like do things. This is about lore. And this is the appropriate amount of lore that 4 adult human beings can maintain in their brain after 4 hours of Cheetos and Mountain Dew. This is it. This is the empirical amount that you can go and have them actually care about. Anything more, and somebody's getting left behind. But it also opens an avenue, and Riley's heard about this a lot, Adam. I play with a system that I've used for a long time called I Know a Guy. And what it is every player, writing backstory sucks. Like it's good because it gives the DM fuel to maybe do something with it, but let's be fair, a lot of them probably aren't going to do that. Because it won't go just so. So we say, pick 3 people, and it's a tool that you can use mechanically when you need a story hook delivered to you, and I'm not an author delivering it directly to a reader. I need them to come to it like a fishy to a worm. Sometimes the player says, oh, we have a problem. I know a guy. There's a dude over there that I know that works for the guards. We went to high school together. And what's his name? His name is Draven, and he's like this edgy dude and blah blah blah. Cool. That
Draven?
person...
No, Drave.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyway.
That person exists now in the world, and I guess I'm role playing this person now. Tell me about them. And by doing so, this isn't I know a high level wizard that will solve all of our problems. It's the players engaging in the story
Mhm.
and doing collaborative storytelling. And it saves me work, keeps them
Mhm.
more engaged, and the story goes in weird and interesting places that I didn't plan for, which
So
is always nice.
That's
I was
really
about to,
cool.
yeah, I was about to say, Adam, have you ever employed something similar when writing a book where you're just thinking about how your characters interact and stuff like that, of going like, how do I solve this issue in writing a book?
Yeah. One of the advantages of being dyslexic is being highly visual. And I've given a lot of talks about writing stories non-linearly, right? Like I have a lot of conversations. You've already heard some of my voices. And so I'll be walking around and like characters will start talking in my head. And sometimes I'll, verbalize that out. And it's like, okay, this is an interesting point. And I've got like post-it notes of all sizes and colors, right? From, let's see, something more regular size. And then I've
Mhm.
got the wall size stuff. And so I might mark down, ooh, this is an interesting moment, or this is an interesting argument, and then I'll put it up on a wall. And then whenever I don't feel creative, I'll look at try to regroup those. It gives me a kinesthetic experience of working with my story
Mhm.
visually. After a while, it kind of looks like one of those crazy guy things with like string
Yeah, I
and
was about
stuff
to
and
say, like, yeah, do
rewriting.
you have that here?
Yeah,
The-
no, not at all. But just over here, I have two huge whiteboards and I got some post-its on the wall, and you
Mhm.
don't get to see it behind me because I make it all respectable. It's like the madness can't be spread everywhere.
Yeah.
But one of the things that it does is, and hats off to the authors who can kind of start at the beginning and go to the end. I kind of have these moments and then I start stitching them and then they get rearranged. And then eventually out of that noise comes this coherence of the story.
Mhm.
And, one of the things that I realized early on is those kind of moments, similar to your cards, they can't have too much in them because otherwise
Mhm.
they become too complicated to fit in with other things. Or it's like they've got too many wires sticking out that you've got, okay, well, this one I've got to tie off. I'm one of those people, I actually keep track of all the kind of little nuggets from book one into book two, and then I'm trying to resolve those
Mhm.
in book three, and then make sure I land the plane with all of the other elements by the end of the series.
I've read The Wheel of Time entirely too many times to try and put my brain through that again. It's interesting you say that because in world building for what we do
Mhm.
for Logomancy, um, you're a very kinetic sort of creator. You said
Mhm.
I draw mostly from music, so
Hmm.
I'll hear music whether it's something that provokes an emotion. I
Uh,
music is very much my jam. It's a
Yep.
thing. But I'll hear a song and I'm like, this is my story. And I'm like,
Mhm.
either how it made me feel or the way two lyrics interact with each other. And I'll tend to take that and it's like, this character is absolutely based on a very specific song. And if you hear the song, you understand the character now.
So at the back of a bunch of my books, I have the playlist
Yep.
that I actually, because I create them for each book.
Yep.
And I know 100% what you mean. It's like, this is that moment, this is that character, this is that
Yep.
feeling, and you wrap it up. And that's a great way to be able to get right back into that moment. Like if you had a
Yes.
day of work, your head somewhere else, you put that on and you're transported.
Hmm.
it it's funny because like I listen to a lot of progressive metal, a lot of folk metal, like a lot of this kind of stuff. One of my favorite bands of all time is Blind Guardian,
Yep.
where
Yes.
a
Yes.
lot of
You are
the
correct.
yes
That is the right
uh
answer.
Blind
um
Guardian.
but a lot of their music is ballads and bards and
They wrote an entire album called The Wheel of Time
yes,
about the Wheel of
Wheel of
Time.
Time, yes.
Is it
And
like 800 hours long?
Uh,
no, but
it
it's
feels like
about
it
an hour.
sometimes.
It's almost 2 hours long, I think, that album. I think it's like a
Yeah.
longer album of theirs. But wonderful, wonderful music. But a lot of the times I will just picture myself as I'm listening to it, stories and tales and these epic battles and these gods versus men kind of things just appear in
Mhm.
my head as I'm listening to the music. But yeah, there's 100%. Music is a very powerful storytelling element in anything.
Absolutely. I there's certain things too, like uh maybe it's because we do our storytelling on camera now, because I do it more now than I used to, whether it's a maturity thing or a difference in how I present things. Um, most of our storytelling is told in 4-episode arcs and in a 4-hour session. So we only get 4 hours to convey X, Y, and Z. And it kind of parallels like writing for a TV show or something of that nature. So you learn to be really concise in what you're trying to convey. And most of the time, if I'm writing an arc for the players, I think of it like, what are the 3 cool things that are gonna happen here? What's my Dumais Wells moment here? And sometimes that's a visual or a really weird esoteric meeting. Like I ran the party through a colony of elves that bonded with parasitic insectile symbiotes, and everybody's just like strangely half naked and looking at each other and telepathically speaking, and like a real sense of unease just because it feels alien.
Sorry, before you get onto your next alien piece here, I would like to roll for another cider if you don't mind.
That is entirely
my
okay
cider is finished. Again, if you're not done your ciders, don't worry about it.
Yeah, go for it, sir.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll add it to the list.
Ooh, 4. 1, 2. Am I going right to left, left to right?
Right to left.
Right to left.
And Riley, what was the name of the first one again? Mythic.
It was Mythic Cider by Journey North.
Understood.
I like the name of the brewery too, or cidery. Ooh, and I now am drinking Send It by Woodward Cider Co. It is a raspberry infused cider.
Ooh. I like it.
Yeah.
I need some sweet ASMR into the mic.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Would you like me to whisper sweet?
I'm heavily distracted by Adam's chair because the holes in the back. Every so often you turn and it looks like from your hair you've got pigtails coming off.
Right. Well, I've got the long hair. So,
I know, but it's literally just your chair doing it. It's an illusion.
Isn't it kind of nice how the dye dances in the liquid?
Right? Oh, yes, it is. That's beautiful. This is a podcast, and you can't see what I'm talking about right now. Riley's pouring his beer. It's kind of red like cranberry juice.
Because it's a raspberry infused cider.
Elegant, not eloquent. Jeebs. Eloquent. But where do you find Adam when you're picking your moments? Because like you can call them your like your money shots or your tension or your main plot points. When you're sitting down, have you ever written something out based over a single idea? Like, this is a fight that needs to happen, and I'm going to build out around what led up to this particular moment.
Oh, yeah. And it's so let's use the idea of a heroic type of fight, right?
Sure.
Maybe the hero loses initially. And then, I go backwards and forwards in time. The effects of that, how did we get there?
Yeah.
Then how that, then how that, and then how that. And what I'll do is sometimes I'll even kind of draw a tentative timeline, and I'll just put some of those moments. What was a key moment that came before that thing, right? Because everybody's kind of got these arcs, right? And I'm not talking about, oh, he got up and he had breakfast and then he got an Uber, but the Uber didn't arrive. No. It's like, what were the key moments? And then what I try to do is I look to see, can I get an arc? Do I get a journey out of that? And it's funny, the number of times where I've had that kind of moment, and as I start building from it, and then it suddenly starts becoming a book 2. It's like that moment, I've now got enough backstory and other things, and now I'm fascinated about what's going up here. And it's like, you know what, this is really about dealing with, like, if we're using D&D analogy, levels 1 to 3. That's a level 5 fight.
Yeah.
Other times, what I've done is I've kind of built around it, and I realized that really it's more like scaffolding. It's like everything I'm going to write is actually going to be after that moment.
Yeah.
But I needed to really think through that moment, almost like I'm building up so I can paint on the ceiling, and then the scaffolding gets moved away. And I've had that people bring up a number of times. It's like, how come this character was so developed? Or like, how come your Yellow Hood series? It's like everybody is well developed. It's like I almost feel like I can point to any character. It's like he's only in for half a chapter. And it's like, I know what flavor of ice cream he likes, and he likes flat shoes that have been worn on the left side a bit more, right?
It sounds like you have the makings of a prequel series, my friend.
I
The
will
Green
not say
Hood
anything on the
series.
grounds of cremating myself. Yeah. I've had a sequel series for the Yellow Hoods, first two books, 1.5 written for 2 years, and getting, one of the things when you go through a traumatic moment, not to kind of bring us all down, but when you go through any kind of moment that significantly affects you, one of those story points, literally, we talk about doing those to other characters or players, right? Trauma for players is good, right? It's like on the back of my book, on the back of this one, I said, for example, perilous and wondrous items to bring excitement, laughter, and potentially trust issues, right?
Yes.
So I'm upfront of it. But for myself, in going through it, it was a lot less fun. But you change, and your voice changes, and you've got to kind of realign. You want to think from a music point of view. It's about finding that new point of harmony to where you actually can start moving forward, right?
And yeah, it's moments like that change certain perspectives of your life. And I mean, yeah, I've gone through some crazy things in my life too, but there's like all these things that just kind of layer and change your voice and change your
Yeah.
tone. And it being able to enter that into your own writing is a really amazing thing.
There's I got a little pink like 5-star notebook kicking around here somewhere. And the
5-star.
first that's what it is.
Sorry, I just laughed because it's just such a thing where it's like, get your 5-star notebook. I just remember when I was a kid going back to school in elementary and high school. It's like 5-star.
No, I had the green ones from the dollar store. They were fine. But no,
My parents were teachers.
Yeah, that's fair. But the first 35 pages in this like 500-page book, I can't go back and look at because like it's a place that I tab out music and songs, and I just immediately skip it and keep carrying on because it's music that I will never make again because it's not. It was genuine once, but it is no longer. Right?
Yeah. So for 25 years, I wrote and I did nothing with my writing. By that meaning, like I sent one story out to ever try to get published. I think it was Asimov science fiction. It was rejected. My wife framed that rejection letter, saying that one day it'll do
I've
something.
heard about doing that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I had it around off and on. But anyway, where I was going with it is then after I started writing a couple of my books, I went back to some of those stories that I had really fond memories of because, I wrote some of these. I turned 50 last year. So so I was in my mid 40s. I'm here like, I'm going to just reach back kind of 10 years, 20 years. I'm going to take some of these stories. And they just were like, nah, I can't work with this.
Yeah.
Better to just, I could just burn it or I could just leave it.
Yeah.
I can think about it effectively, but yeah, I'm not the same writer. My complexities are different. My pain points, what interests me is different, right?
Yeah.
And the other part about going through that kind of trauma thing was it's not about just kind of aligning to your new voice. You have to leave behind baggage of who you were to figure out who your new you is, right?
Well, and from a music perspective too, you look at bands that have been touring for 25 years and the idea of I'm going to sing the same songs every night that I was singing when I was 17, but they've got a very, very different connotation. Like there are books that plenty of authors have stated where it's like, I couldn't write that as the author I am today. I wouldn't have written it because not because it was bad, but because it's a completely different headspace from where I'm at now. Right?
And yeah, it's such a interesting thing to kind of see the creativity side of people 10 years, 5 years apart from each other, because there is a lot of different creativities. But I thought one final kind of question for the night would be kind of fun.
Sure. Yeah.
I would like to hear your favorite artist, as in music, your favorite author, and I would love to hear one other creative thing that you really like. And this is for all three of us.
Ah, yes. So, Adam, why don't you go first? We'll put you right on the spot, so it gives me time to think.
All right. Wow. I was not expecting it. This is where I pull the mic off and I'm supposed to walk out. Yeah, go ahead, Riley.
I could go first.
Let me stall.
So I will say my favorite author, probably of all time, is Neil Gaiman. I've been a big fan of his work for a very long time. I have Sandman was probably the first real adult comic I read when I was 20-ish, 18, 20-ish. Actually, no, probably around 16, 17 was when I first started reading Neil Gaiman stuff. And it started off with Good Omens, which, of course, was between Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. My favorite musician of all time, this one is a little bit hard, but something that just really reaches into my soul is a band called the Oyster Band from England.
Yeah.
They are a folk metal, or they are just a folk band. Folk metal. They are a folk band, but it was one of those bands that really just kind of reached out to me because my dad was a huge fan of them.
Folk punk band, my friend.
Are they folk punk?
Spirit of the Dust.
That makes them funk?
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's Spirit of the West. I was saying the Oyster Band.
Spirit of Dust.
Spirit of Dust. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. This they've been. I saw them live once, and it was at a folk concert in it was like a folk festival, and they were like quote unquote headliners, and it was High Best. They were in this tiny church of maybe 50 people. They sell out concert halls in the UK.
Yep.
And they were in this tiny church of 50 people. And after the concert, I was able to go like, "Hi, thank you very much for playing your music." And they were like, "Oh yeah, no worries. It was really fun."
Interesting tidbit. Oyster Band is from Kent, England, which is the same place that my Call of Cthulhu character this week is based out of.
Interesting. I like that.
Interesting tidbits.
And then the third thing is just creativity wise. I, and James will know this, I'm a big fan of miniatures and dioramas and stuff like that. This is something I just been working on for the first time. And it's a Gundam that I broke up and did weathering effects and stuff like that. Never done it before, but I absolutely love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Adam? Wow. I absolutely adored Good Omens. Now, one of the things as a kid who was an undiagnosed dyslexic was that books were always a challenge. And as you know, you go up in years, they get smaller print. And but one of the books, I'm going to say, rather than a favorite author, probably the first that I really was profoundly affected by was actually Aldous Huxley in Brave New World.
Okay.
And so, and I read that, I don't know, somewhere around like grade 7 or 8. And so much of that stuck with me. And then after that was Isaac Asimov with, I think, Childhood's End. So some of those kind of classic authors. But I do have to say, I have my copy of Good Omens, which is ratty, somewhere in the house. That was one of the first books that I ever read, which took a lot less effort to do so, but thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And go ahead.
Have you seen the second season of the Prime series?
Yeah.
Okay.
Course. Yes.
Working on it. Please don't spoil.
Won't, but it's good.
Okay,
Oh, I
so we'll
know.
leave all the deaths out of it.
Yeah.
No worries. Sorry, awkward. Bands. It was really interesting. It got me thinking. I have pretty eclectic tastes,
Yes.
and for each book, never mind each series and all that.
I just listed off Oyster Band from the UK.
Yeah,
I think we're in the same
but-
boat. We're fine.
you got me thinking, and it's funny. I've been thinking a lot, and it's less about the band, which is a well-known band I'll mention in a minute, but it's about the moments that I associate with it. So it's the Police.
Yep.
Now, when I think about the Police, I am taken back to a friend of mine working nights at a Shell gas station in Montreal, where I grew up. We would also play chess some nights, whatnot. We were in Sejep, so equivalent of grade 12, grade 13. And so I associate the Police with those moments, right?
Nice.
We would be talking about D&D or whatnot. Christmas Day, like he's having to work. I'm over there, I've snuck out of the house and whatnot to go for that. And every time I hear their stuff, but I also got their Message in a Bottle collection set, like, I don't know, when it ever first came out on CD, and listened to all their punk stuff, which was just awesome to hear the whole transition and change over time. So yeah, they're actually not on any of my book playlists. They're a me playlist.
I love it.
So yeah, in terms of other creative stuff, it's kind of funny that so much of my world comes right back to books, but when I try to write, I have a very hard time. Like, a lot of writers like to use very simple, almost DOS style, or just plain, just show the words. And I'm so visual, I can only write up to a certain point before I have to see the visuals. So I've been doing a lot more work on not just layout, but design, like really reinvigorate my visual sense as I'm writing it. So, for example, volume 2 of Wondrous and Perilous Treasures and the Satori World book, I started in Scrivener, which is the writing software, and then at one point I move over to Affinity Publisher, and I'm bringing in the art, and I'll take photos when I'm out, and I'll pass it to one of the 3 artists that I'm working on or working with. It's like, hey, this kind of thing with this moment. Like, I build a video of the moment in my head, and then I share that out, and it is so awesome to then get back somebody's rendition of it. So while it's not like an explicit hobby, it is one of those elements that I really enjoy, and I'll collect these eclectic, random photos of things. This with this kind of texture, and it tastes like what this rock looks like. Right? Like that kind of.
The schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Like schnozberries.
Yeah. So what about you, James?
Yeah. So the music side is challenging because I also have an incredibly eclectic taste, as my wife can attest to. She's like, "What are we listening to now?" My right up there when it comes to storytelling, Iron Maiden. So Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Empire in the Clouds, they are theatrical as fuck. And it is everything that I've ever needed in my life, and it's been a constant in my life all the way through. They're coming to Calgary in 6 days, and I'm going to be really, really sad because I didn't get tickets. It was the thing. But Iron Maiden, because depending on how you're feeling, there's an album for that, like all the way through, and it's just this progressive storytelling that just got better over time. In Flames, they're a metal band that, again, same sort of vibe where depending on how you're feeling, we've got an album for that, and it's this symphonic metal music that just speaks to you. It's really, really good. But my favorite band is a little band out of Chicago called I Fight Dragons. And they are the pioneers of chiptune music. Music made using like 8-bit instruments. We joked earlier about Riley turning 8-bit from his camera. But you've heard of bands like Anamanaguchi and things like that. They got their start from I Fight Dragons. They would bring up a Power Glove that was rigged up to a MIDI controller and sit and play small Chicago rock shoegazer tunes. And I covered one of their songs and performed it for my wife at our wedding. And 2 days ago, they got in touch with me and agreed to let me use all of their music for our next fundraiser next month. And they're just freaking, it's awesome. It's amazing. So they're, again, every album, depending on what you're feeling, if you need to be hyped, they got some stuff for that. And if you need to feel feelings for the first time in a while, they got an album for that. And everything in between.
Note.
Yeah. I'll link you some stuff.
That'd be
music.
Awesome.
Authors.
That's music.
Did you say authors?
I haven't gotten to authors. So authors are Monica Hughes will always hold a special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book called Invitation to the Game. And I read it in the 5th grade, and it's about a dystopian future where automation has taken over everything, and human beings, only the top 1% are needed for jobs. And they fix the farming equipment and things like that. It's not robot overlords. It's just the computer can do it better than the people can in most cases. And it's about, like, it's partially a coming of age story and partially a hero's journey kind of mashed together, but it's written for the 10-year-old. And it's about these little kids that, or sorry, I say little kids, but people graduating high school. I feel old now. That band together into a home, and they get invited to a game, and it's this holographic simulator where they find themselves on an alien world, and they need to use their skills to like practice things, and like they cut the girl's hair to make string for fishing and things like that. And every time they go in, their pockets are emptied and they can't take anything in. And finally, they don't wake up from the game. And you find out in the prologue that they find crashed ships and they were shipping humanity off world kind of deal. The book's been out for, 40, 50 years now. I'm not spoiling anything for anybody. But it's the thing that got me into sci-fi. And if I hadn't read that, I never would have picked up anything by Frank Herbert. Because Dune holds a special place in my heart. It was a complex read for the age that I started reading it, and it introduced complex ideas for how I perceived, like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you guys just talk about it and like everybody gets their own planet and then you don't have to fight about things? And Dune was like, listen, son, that is not what we're doing here.
He who controls the space,
right? So that led me down the sci-fi route. Again, I touched on David Eddings. David Eddings was my first fantasy author, and every couple of years I go back and read the Belgariad and the Malorian and the Tamuli and just Robert Jordan as well. Because again, if you want every topic under the sun in a single book series, you read The Wheel of Time.
One other book moment for me was in the second Dragonlance Chronicles.
Yeah.
And when Flint dies. And that stuck with me so much so that I have a moment that reflects that in my sci-fi novel.
Okay.
And one of those things, like you're saying, like it just stays with you decade on decade on decade on decade, how you felt in that moment, the anticipation. And those are the kind of things that when I'm trying to write a moment, trying to bring the reader through all of that journey. And players the same way, right? Like when you're setting up a game, you're creating a moment, you don't want to spoil it. It's not just the arriving at the destination, it's all of that transition through that, like a musical piece to land there. Right? And then that stunned look when they realize, oh my God, we followed all the clues wrong. Or
there was one instance of that happening during my reading when I was younger, and that was Starman, DC Comics, James Robinson, I believe is the author. Actually, hold on. I think this is close enough to me. Is this the right jacket? Yes, this is.
And that is Riley's spine.
Hi.
Nice.
Cool.
This was painted by a friend of mine on the back of a leather jacket. And
for the folks on the podcast, Riley's holding up a leather jacket that has a bitchin' design on it. I can't make it out on camera, right?
It says to Riley, watch the stars. And let's see, that is March 2nd, 2013.
I love it.
And that was James Robinson, and that was one of the first times I ever met an author who I was a big fan of.
Nice. The last because again, eclectic tastes being what they are and influencing in different ways. Alan Moore. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Neil Gaiman. Alan Moore writes some terrifying shit. Like, it's great.
Oh, well, I mean, and also you suck and other things like that. That's the right author, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I got the right guy.
Things like his take on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and that, like,
oh, completely different author.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I went back and I was like, who's this Dorian Gray guy? And then I found the portrait or picture of Dorian Gray at my local library when I was like 12 years old, and I read this old, dusty, ratty book. And my parents are like, "Are you turning into a poet or something? Like, what's the?" Because I've got this tiny little book that I'm sitting reading at the dinner table, and it's what congealed together to create my own writing style, and like I know what I like, and the neurospicy in me is like, let's hit those dopamine centers anytime that you get something vaguely familiar to the thing that is comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And then on the creative side, like I paint minis because I have to paint minis more than anything else.
Gray shame?
Well, I pick primary colors when I'm painting. Here's my palette of 8 colors. What color is this jacket? Green. What color are those pants? Brown. Why? Because they need to be colored. Right? I'm the MS Paint of mini painting. Because from 3 feet away, I need you to know all 4 colors that I used to paint that mini. And that is good enough for me. That satisfies my need. My creative outlet is music when I can manage. I work through the different themes and ambient sounds that we use for our stream. I work with other arrangers and composers to like revitalize it. Because again, I got little kids. I don't have a whole lot of time to sit in front of a mixing board and play.
Yeah.
So we took our main theme and I'd hand it to a composer and say, I need this to be spooky. Here are the production elements I need. I need a music box. I need cellos. I need like this. Cover my theme, but do it with creepy instruments.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Lo and behold, it worked very well.
So far, so good.
Monday.
Everybody was getting real creeped out.
Yeah, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my that's me in a nutshell.
And I think that's a pretty good place for the end of the episode. I think very good, just good questions and very good things. And thank you very much, Adam.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little bit of a soapbox. What do you got coming up? Any cons coming up, or any publications, any appearances? The soapbox is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. So, as I mentioned, I think somewhere earlier in the episode, or at least I thought the thought. So I've got Wondrous and Perilous Treasures Volume 2 right now in the works, and I'm going to be doing that as a Kickstarter, likely kicking off sometime probably early November. So, or late October, we're going to see. Anybody who wants to get more information on that, they can get that at adamdreece.com. That's AdamDreece.com. Similarly, on TikTok, I'm at Adam Dreece. Instagram, at Adam Dreece. Facebook, Adam Dreece Author.
I like
so, yeah, I've got that. I've got the world book that's coming. I'm working on an anthology of short stories for The Wizard Killer to kind of bring that series up before I land the plane with the final episode. Or series. season. That's the word I was looking for. Season. I got season 1, 2, and 3, and that ends the series. There we go. So yeah, I've got all of those 3 things really in the hopper right now.
Love it.
Exciting times.
And if anybody listening wants to send any questions your way, you can also find Adam in our Discord. I don't know if he'll respond because it's Discord and I need another Discord, like I need a hole in the head, but you know.
I will pay attention. I will answer, sir.
If people tag you, it happens. Thank you very much for stopping by. As for us, you can find us this coming Monday for our finale of our Call of Cthulhu series, which Melissa's been running for us. It's been very good so far. I have some, what I'm going to assume are handmade props inside this box of waffles that's sitting beside me.
Yes.
That nobody on the podcast will be able to see, but I had props dropped off at my house and they said, don't open it until a certain thing happens in a story. So if you'd like to come and join us for some spooky, that's Monday nights at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to be bringing up a couple more episodes of Roll for Beer. We have another couple of guests lined up here. Check out the socials ahead of time. I'll post when we confirm the next guest coming in. We're going to be at Tabletop YYC in November, running some D&D here in Calgary, down at the BMO Center. We're not participating in the Taboo show. We're going to be in the amphitheater next to it, but you might still see people in costumes? Question mark.
Costumes.
Yes. Look, if you've been to a con anytime recently, it's hard to tell the difference between the Taboo Sex show sometimes and Comic Expo. But that said, we'll be running some D&D. We're also looking at starting up a painting event for the Airdrie Public Library. If you're around the Calgary area, they've asked us to come and do some stuff.
And that's Dungeons and Dragons, not Dungeons and Dommies.
Or Daddies.
Or Daddies.
Well, I mean, technically, I qualify. But anyways, that said, thank you everybody for stopping by. Thank you, Adam, for your time. It was lovely. Yes. And I look forward to doing this again and to playing some D&D with you at some point. We should get you in a game one of these days.
Very much so.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll say goodnight. Good night, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Goodbye, cruel. Hey, now, whoa!
Hey,
Got dark.